All right, good evening, Facebook viewers. And here's a first. Before the meeting, before the council meeting, say hello to Jeremy Karlin.
Hi. Am I supposed to say hi?
Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
hi.
Yeah, that was kind of awkward. I'm sorry
You
about
said
that.
say hello to Jeremy Karlin.
Say hello to Jeremy
As if they're going to
Karlin.
wave at me. I can't
Right,
see
exactly.
whether there are people waving.
Well, I'm waving at you.
All right, thanks.
You are Ward 7 Alderman.
Yes, I am.
So welcome. So what we want to do before council meetings, which is twice a month, first and third, Mondays of every month, what we'd like to do beforehand is talk to aldermen, and you're the first one to step up.
All right.
So you're our inaugural guy.
I'm just going to blaze the path for everybody else.
Exactly. And I see you're attired in your Syracuse sweatshirt.
Yes, I am. I am the class of 91.
Okay.
I was a political studies and peace studies major. Political science and peace studies major. I'm an Orange man through and through, although now they call themselves the Orange. Yes.
That's right.
Right.
The Orange. And is that Donovan McNabb?
Donovan McNabb. Excellent. Very good.
And there's another quarterback before him. I can't remember.
Yeah. So no, it's
Donovan.
I mean, of course,
McNabb.
there's Jim Brown.
Jim Brown. Lacrosse and football.
Lacrosse and football. There's,
All-American in both.
Ernie Davis.
That's right. Who followed Brown.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. All right, so Syracuse guy. Hey, you've braved the weather and you've come in, and what we kind of want to talk about is what and I don't know whether this is true or not, but from the press gallery of the city council chambers, looks like you have a little bit of a passion for Parks and Rec. Would you agree to that?
Yes, you have inferred correctly.
And
I do.
Why is that?
Well, I think of it this way, is that, part of what we do in government is provide the infrastructure for things to happen. And when we talk about the word infrastructure, we're often thinking about streets. We're talking about sidewalks and the overpasses and the underpasses that we've been able to accomplish while I've been on the city council. That's great. When I think about infrastructure, I'm not only talking about how we get from point A and B in our cars and our bikes and walking, but I think about a social infrastructure.
Right.
And Parks and Recreation really provides that social infrastructure to get people together to, as a community, to get to meet each other, do fun things together, enjoy the community in which we live in, provide safe and fun recreation for our children, and places in which we get to just enjoy the outdoors. That's the social infrastructure, and I think Parks and Recreation, we talk about Parks and Recreation are the real community builders of a town, and that's why I feel so passionately about that as a cog in the wheel of what we're trying to do here.
And so the spectrum on quality of life is always, it's roads and water mains, but then that spectrum runs into things like pools and parks and
I don't
walking
know
paths, right?
I think quality of life, when it comes to streets and sidewalks, I mean, sidewalks certainly, particularly for to allow people to walk to and from, accessibility, particularly for those people who need a sidewalk. But I don't know. It's hard to. Imagine this as a selling point. Come to Galesburg, Illinois. We have the smoothest roads in the land.
Great point.
That's not going to get people to come here. And if anything on my 8 years in the city council has taught me that every decision that we make, we need to analyze from the perspective of population growth. Every question, it begins and ends there. Are we going to, by doing what we do, are we going to encourage the people that we want to come here to actually come here?
Right.
And are we encouraging the people who have already made the decision to live here, either by choice or by birth, to stay? Right. And Parks and Recreation, I think more so than streets and sidewalks, although the streets and sidewalks are the greatest number of complaints I get as a council member. Streets, Parks and Recreation, and those other amenities and quality of life really, I think, are more important, to do that quality of life issue.
So my first council meeting that I ever covered here for the city, you encouraged a vote to set aside a little bit of money that was already being set aside.
Right.
You wanted an earmark, some money for Parks and Recreation. Can you let's go back to that and kind of explain to people what your thinking was at that time, and what that money...
What that money really represented was that the year prior, what we had done is we put into effect a utility tax.
Right.
And And that utility tax is kind of divided into thirds, the revenue from that. A third goes to funding streets and sidewalks. And mind you, what the reason for that utility tax is that we found that because of the increasing strains and pressures on our general fund, that we were not doing any capital projects outside of those projects that were funded by the motor fuel tax.
Right.
And so we needed a revenue stream that would do that. And so that would help us do these capital projects. So a third of that utility tax goes to streets and sidewalks. A third of it goes to taking care of the thing that we probably ignored the most, which is our sewers.
Okay.
And what's going on underneath.
Right.
The things that we complain about when it rains, like the cats and dogs, and it's the
Right.
flooding on West Carl Sandburg Drive, right?
Sure.
And then a third went to go pay for a $10 million grant. Excuse me.
No worries.
$10 million bond, of which it allowed us to kind of front load a lot of street projects to come in, and but then also other projects. And one of those projects was a $300,000 park project.
Right.
Kind of put an asterisk or a thumbtack in it. We really hadn't, identified what that was, but we wanted a larger capital project for parks and recreation.
Gotcha.
Or maybe I wanted one, and I, kept on saying something until everyone said, "Okay, shut up. We'll do it."
Right. Gotcha.
Now, I have always thought that what that capital project should be is a miniature golf course.
Right. And that was the part we were going to get to, because there's another passion underlying this.
Well, I make it no secret that that's one of my goals, to have a miniature golf course. Because when we're talking about getting people to move here, we're not talking. There's a particular person or a group that we'd love to get to move here, which is young families.
Right.
And if you think about the amenities that a young family needs, why are they going to come to Galesburg? They're going to come here for safety, and that's a public safety, and that's certainly an issue I'm passionate about. They're going to come here because they want the quality of life that a small town is going to provide, but they also want the amenities that a larger town is going to provide.
Right.
And one of them is miniature golf. It's a place where you can go as a family, late, after the sun has gone down on those hot summer days,
Right.
and you can go there. You can drop off your teenage kid with their friends and go hang out. It's going to be all right. So I think miniature golf is one of those amenities that if you talk to any person with a family in this town, they'd say, yeah, that's right. In fact, that's right, we'd want it. And in fact, that's borne out by the research that we've done.
Sure.
The research connected with the plan the comprehensive plan. Thank
Park
you.
plan, yeah.
And the park plan, as well as the Heart and Soul Committee. Miniature golf is a higher priority goal, and it's achievable, and we can get it done. We're getting in those figures in. I think we can get it in between, if we spread it out over a couple of years, $300,000 to buy the course,
Right.
and another couple $100,000 depending on where we put it. But I think that speaks to that type of public, that social infrastructure that I've been talking about all along.
In our original conversation, or the first conversation that we had about this, and we're going back several months now, one of the things that interests me is you mentioned location, and you mentioned pretty prominently some South Side locations, which personally, just as a 20-year resident here now, I would like to see more development of South Side locations.
I think so. First of all, perfect is the enemy of good, right?
Right. Yeah,
and we don't want waiting for the perfect location to get in the way of getting a project done. And and so as I've envisioned it, there's really two places where we'd be talking about a miniature golf course. One of them, I think, on the south side, like Kiwanis Park,
right,
and the other one being up at Lakeside.
Right.
Now, there's a benefit at Lakeside, certainly, because we already have a parking lot there. We have a concession stand that we can build. We already have people coming where they can make it a full day, right?
Right.
But it's really hard for people to walk there. It's practically impossible, right?
Right.
You wouldn't want your kids to get on bikes to go up there, either. Not until maybe we finish the South Lake Story Loop. for biking. Nevertheless, you still have to cross Henderson. You don't want that.
Right.
If we put it down in Kiwanis Park, there's a lot of other benefits. Now, I mean, first of all, it puts it in a part of the community where people can walk to.
Right.
It puts it in the part of community that if there was a little more, I guess, action, people being there, things are happening, that that's some of the bad things you hear about Kiwanis Park. That that drive families away. That would drive that other activity away somewhere else, or make it go away completely. I don't know, but. And also, so I mean, it would make it safer. It would create more of a kind of a community hub.
Right.
If you have the skate park and you have the basketball courts and you have miniature golf and you have a concession stand, I can imagine on a Saturday, everyone's just like, all right, we're going to go across the street and have a day of it, and people would be running into each other. Again, we're trying to create this community building where it develops. You're forcing people to see other people in different walks of life and realize that in fact they are human too, and that they have human needs and desires, and that they are worthy of investment. And creating that kind of empathy for people, it's key to kind of making this community coalesce.
Gotcha. Hey, let's talk a little bit about your decision you've decided not to run again.
For city council, yes.
Right.
Right now, I'm not.
So let's talk about that.
Well, what do you want to know? I mean,
I
can tell you what I joke about. I mean, I joke about that 8 years in the city council is like 34 human years. But right, that's the cheap laugh. I have thoroughly enjoyed my 8 years on the city council. Some years more than others, But
sure.
Being on the city council has afforded me is an opportunity to really get to know my city and its community and the community and the people that are in it. And man, we do not suffer from a lack of passion.
Right.
In this community. There are so many people who are so passionate about Galesburg, about its history, about its potential, and about its present. That we don't lack for that, and that's amazing. But I've gotten to know this community. This is the ins and outs of how things happen and why we do certain things, and who are the players, and where is not where the skeletons are buried, but nevertheless, just the ins and outs.
Sure.
And that's been really fun. It's also been really fun helping people out. I mean, when people ask me or say to me like, "Oh, it must be the worst part of the job is dealing with people who call," in fact, that's been the best part, because usually people, sometimes there are people who want to vent. And,
right. Sure. They're just angry.
They're just angry, and that's like 3% of the time. The rest of it is that people who have real problems and they just want to be heard.
Right.
And even if they can get a solution, that would be great. And so my job as an alderman acts really as an ombudsman.
Right.
Is that I get that person to the right person in city government. And so often what I find myself doing is I say to my constituent, "Hey, do you have an email? If you do, just drop me an email, and then I will forward that and copy you on that to the person in city council or city administration who handles that. And then that way I can keep track of how it was responded and make sure that you got a proper response. And even if we get bad news, I say now we, right? Like the constituent and I get like, well, we can't do that. At least we've been heard. And, I think it's what people want. And so that's fun. That's great. And those times we're actually able to solve problems, that's even really cool. And we've been able to do that. It's the little things that, you don't need a council vote on, generally. But, I can remember last week, 2 weeks ago, we got that big, huge snowfall. And a constituent called me and, say, that her cul-de-sac hasn't been plowed and she needs to get out. And in my neck of the woods, because the property values tend to be a little higher than the other parts of the community, sometimes I hear things like, and I pay so much in property tax that, and obviously we don't prioritize based on how much you pay. It's not, but, but nevertheless, and I pay so much property tax, I want my cul-de-sac, and I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to get to church. And so I, dropped a note to Wayne Carl saying, "Hey, I got this thing, and when do you think that you'll be able to get to the, the cul-de-sacs?" and he wrote me back almost immediately. Wayne Carl is excellent about
Right.
that. And yeah, I should stop right here and right now and say that we have amazing employees here in the city. And
I try to tell people, even before I took this job, is that, if you try to talk to somebody over there, they'll try to help you.
yeah, I mean, our employees, from the top on down, they are accessible, they are empathetic, they move with alacrity, typically, and they're great. And so he's like, well, so getting back to the story, Wayne says, they'll get to that in about an hour. They were doing the big routes and they're working their way back. And so I call up my constituent about 10 minutes later to tell her what's going on. And she says, I can't believe what kind of pull you have, Jeremy. They're doing it right now. I'm like, I'm sorry,
Just let
Wayne.
that ride.
I'm sorry, Wayne. I didn't have the heart to. Couldn't say to her, that was all you. I just said, yeah, I got pulled, and I'm coming clean now, I guess.
Sure.
And so it's that when you're able to do that kind of thing, or get a stop sign at a busy intersection, or get a sidewalk fixed, or deal with some of the bigger issues. I mean, I had 2 campaign promises when I came down to city council. One was to my son to get miniature golf, and we're very close. And one was to my then wife, that we would get a new library. And we are also very close. We have done, as a community, practically everything that we can to get the state funding, and hopefully with this new governor, with the new capital project, that he won't just build streets and sidewalks, but he'll also focus on social infrastructure as well.
Right.
So I know that JB is listening right now, and so I'd encourage him to consider Galesburg as a place to invest in our social infrastructure.
All right.
But I mean,
what do you think? In terms of one of the things we talked about in brief before we went on live is what do you think the achievements are?
Well, I
maybe
mean,
1 or 2 specifics.
I think specifically is that I think with regard to economic development, I think when I got on the city council, and this was 8 years ago, we were still as a community in mourning the loss of Maytag.
Absolutely.
And that was like the last of many bloody blows this community has taken. And still at that point, we were thinking about we have to land the big factory, and that our salvation comes in getting that larger company to come on in, and trying to do deals, whatever deal we could possibly do, however sketchy, however bad, however worrisome the partner that we're working with.
I think a lot of people remember like trips to China and guys blowing in from Chicago and stuff like that.
Right, and that's well, obviously that didn't pan out, and I think that now we're taking a really good approach to economic development. I think we are first of all, very well served by Ken Springer at KCAP, our mayor, who has spent a lifetime in economic development, is an extraordinary leader on these issues, and so now we're focusing on trying to hit singles, laying down bunts as opposed to trying to hit home runs. We are now being choosier about the partners that we're taking on. And as a result, we are dealing with incredible companies that both moved here, like Pegasus, and companies who have been here, like Midstate Manufacturing, who are just trying to grow. And we're also focusing not just simply on creating a job, but creating a job that actually pays and can support a family. And with the new set of economic incentives that our program that we're putting together, we are judging projects not simply by the number of jobs, but really we don't count a job unless it pays $14 an hour.
Right.
So I think with the way that we've looked at economic development as a council and as a city, not being so desperate, but making sure that that we do good growth and good projects has been a development. I'd like to think that we've, as a council, we've brought a little more thoughtfulness to what it is that we do in seeking kind of more direction, and that's certainly not anything. I can't claim any individual. That's not because of anything I've done particularly. We have some very good city council members, and we have disagreements certainly in different worldviews, but at the end of the day, we are at our strength when we realize that we're all pulling our oars generally in the same direction. We want all the same thing. We might get there by different. We are going for the same. Let's say going for the same place. We might get there in different ways, but if we can focus on the things that we agree on, and maybe not be afraid to fail. That sometimes our reach should extend our grasp just a little. Right. That we are able to do some really incredible things. We've done that, and I think that I lead the city council. I've done my, I've advanced the ball 10 yards. I've added my paragraph to the story, which is our community, and I'm confident that I'm going to leave it in good hands.
All right. Well, folks, you've been joining us. We're doing a little bit of before the council meeting, and Ward 7 Alderman Jeremy Karlin was kind enough we actually planned this out weeks ago, and we've just had some bad luck.
I blew you off the first time, and then...
Well, you are being candid.
Right, so you're being generous when you say we had bad luck. I blew you off the first time, and then we were supposed to do this on Tuesday, and then Mother Nature came in and interfered. But here we are today, and it's been a blast. I'm passionate about city government, and there's a part of me that wishes I'm not stepping off, but I'm 49 years old, and that's not old by any stretch, I'd like to think, but nevertheless, I'm the youngest person on the city council at 49 years old, and I think that if we are trying to attract young families and young people to this community, then it would make sense that we would have young people in city government influencing those decisions. And that's, what I hoped to have happen when I was stepping off, that someone younger would come in and have that kind of vision.
And we're going to wait on what the next part, if you have a next part, to your public life, or whether you're going, I know you have a son how old?
He's 14 years old. He's a freshman in high school, which of course ought to be illegal. I gave that kid all the coffee and cigarettes he'd take, but he still kept on growing.
Right.
Not really. He's CFS.
They teach you weird things out of Syracuse.
That's right.
But so you've got a family life, and you've got a teenager to keep up with, and of course you do have a professional life. As like
my day gig.
Yeah, right. That day job. So we will wait to see if there's any further announcements on any kind of public life. But thank you for joining us tonight. Hopefully you'll encourage your fellow aldermen to get in this conference room and talk live in front of the camera.
I will do that at the end of the city council meeting. We're allowed a public comment, and I will do that.
Awesome. I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Facebook viewers, thanks for sticking with us. We appreciate your time. The city council meeting's coming up. You can catch that on a live broadcast on
Channel 7.
Yes,
I believe.
Channel 7, public access television. So if you can't make it out, if you don't want to go out in this cold, we don't blame you.
Well, and if you watch today, we'll vote someone off the island. So stay tuned, viewers.
You guys know how to market that council. Huh? All right. Well, thanks, viewers. Thanks for joining us, and have a great evening.
All right. Thanks.